I am so grateful to be here today. Truly grateful. You are a wonderful lady, and you have changed so many things in my life over the last few years.
We look so much like Esther.
I thank you. I love being in a place of gratitude.
Appreciation, even better.
Even better?
Gratitude holds with it what you've overcome. Appreciation has no resistance whatsoever.
I'll work there.
In other words, when you're grateful for something, usually you're grateful that you're not where you were.
True.
When you are feeling appreciation, you really tuned into source.
I heard something from you recently where you talked about narrowing your focus.
Yeah. And when you do that, things flow faster. It's like becoming more specific, yes?
Right. I believe when you were talking about maybe how you view the world and how you take in the world, how you view things unfolding, and if you just kind of narrow your focus of how you see the world unfolding, that you'll just really pay attention to what's in your vortex and
well,
what you're trying to create.
Let's talk about it energetically, and then we want to understand more what you're getting at. But there's a little basis that might help. We say to you, you get what you think about, whether you want it or not. So pay attention to what you're thinking. That's sort of a basic thing that we've been saying to you for a while. But now we're saying to you that every subject is really two subjects, wanted on one end of the stick and absence of what you want on the other end of the stick. So just because you've activated a subject doesn't mean that you are focused on it in a way that you're really letting it in. So you want to pay attention to what you're thinking about. If you are on the end of the stick that isn't serving you very well, where you are getting the momentum of resistance going rather than the momentum of allowing going, then the less specific you are, the better. Because when you get specific, it makes things flow faster. So you have to sort of get the hang of this a little bit. That's why Esther is asking of herself, where did I receive that from? When an idea comes, was I really in the receiving mode? Do I want to run with this? Do I want to focus on this? Do I want to talk about this and think about this? Or was I in the trying to fix something that was broken receiving mode? And you can tell by the way you feel of where the idea is coming from would determine, if we were standing in your physical shoes, whether we focused upon it in more detail or whether we back away from it. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
So, you know, just from watching a stream, have you ever seen a big wide river, and as it gets narrower and narrower, it can turn into whitewater rapids? And so the more general it is, then the slower it flows, but the more specific it gets, then the faster it flows. And so that's what we mean when we're talking about that. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about maybe limiting the distractions.
Well, maybe, but here's the thing. If you would think about your vibrational point of attraction, which brings the thoughts, rather than the thoughts that your point of attraction brings. Did you hear that? When you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, many glorious thoughts about many subjects could come to you simultaneously, and there'd be no resistance and no overwhelmment. It would just be pleasurable. It's like opening all of your senses to wonderful things. But if you're not feeling good, you don't want to open to all of that stuff. Knowing where you are is important, don't you think?
Absolutely.
So give us more of what you're thinking about.
So I'm thinking, as you narrow your focus, how are you?
So I'm narrowing my focus, meaning I'm getting more specific.
I'm getting more specific about what I want.
Because I'm feeling so good that it's a natural consequence of that. For example, we are encouraging that, as an example, that you meditate for a few days, get feeling really good, and then look through a magazine of beautiful things, or look through a deck of these cards, or go to an art gallery, or whatever it is that appeals to you. We're not encouraging you to go there for stimulation. We're encouraging you to get tuned in and then follow your impulse to find the stimulation. And there's a difference, isn't there? Because when you're trying to goose it up, when you're doing it with effort, we call it trying too hard. And so the process takes care of you on its own. Here's something that you might be missing. Most do. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Step 1 is, that's when you clarify. Life helps you clarify. You know what you don't want. You know what you do want. You know what you don't want. You know what you do want. You know what you don't want. You know what you do want. You knew when you were 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. In other words, you've been clarifying. And your vortex is full of the clarification. Not just the clarification that you put there with every one of those experiences, but your inner being's been standing there as you've added another and added another. And your inner being is kept up with all of it. So, oh boy, is it specific. Is it very detailed? Who you are and what you want is so well known. So well known to the universe and to your inner being, and known because law of attraction has gathered it. The question is, do you know what's in there? And the answer to that is, how good do you feel? In your appreciation, then you're in the place to receive the inspiration. But you couldn't possibly live every good thing that your vortex has queued up for you all at once. That would be a mind-blowing experience. Although sometimes you get so tuned in it feels like it. You'll take a walk and every wonderful thing that could possibly happen will come with you on your walk. Every sweet little dog or sweet person or bird flying over or thinking that you haven't seen before. In other words, so much beauty and wonderment comes to you when you get in that vibrational place where you're just following your bliss. As Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss, follow your bliss, follow your bliss. So now what are you asking about?
So now what I'm asking about is, how do I tap into my vortex to manifest those? Right?
What's the word? Meditate.
I do. Every day. Every day I do.
All right. So when you meditate, do you quiet your mind or do you think a lot?
I absolutely quiet my mind.
And when you quiet your mind, what happens to your body?
Relaxes.
And do you feel any detachment? Do you find yourself sort of not knowing your toe from your nose?
Yes. Yes.
Once you're there, then listen. Listen for the impulse. Listen for the impulse. Are you aware of that happening?
Yes.
You just answered the question that you asked us. That's how you do it. So you're already doing it.
I am doing it. I want more of it.
This is why this conversation is so wonderful. So once you are consciously aware that you've received a thought, it's all right for you to think, hey, I just received a thought. I'd like to receive more thoughts. But if you think too much about the thoughts you want to receive, you'll get in the way of it, because you just want to get in the habit of receiving the thoughts. And then, thankfully, the timer will go off, because the 20 minutes is only 20 minutes long. So there you are, and now it's time to take your newly achieved vibrational alignment and to move outward into your world. And so you go as far as you can go in the day, and you might maintain it for a while, you might not, it doesn't matter. Start again tomorrow and go as far as you can go in the day. You might make it an hour, you might make it 2 hours before you begin having more contrasting thoughts. It doesn't matter. But then the next day, until it won't be very long, a week or 2 or 3, before you will not only have quieted your mind as you are accustomed to doing, but you will have consciously received what your inner being is inspiring to you. See, your inner being's offering this all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. You just don't have your radio on sometimes, so you don't hear it. You're settling, or you're doing that practical thing instead. But once you've decided, I am going to put myself in a place where I can tune to the frequency of my source, these things you got to know. We're going to ask you if you do. Do you know that you're more than this body? Do you know that there's a vortex full of things that you want? Do you know that your inner being knows about them? Do you know that your inner being knows where you stand in relationship to all of them? Do you know your inner being's talking to you all the time about helping you rendezvous with them? Do you know that sometimes you're listening? Do you know that sometimes you're not? Do you know what to do about getting better at listening? Then you've got it. That's all there is. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, really good at it. Step 5, enjoying the contrast and putting more stuff in. That's why you never get it done. You know, if you didn't keep going back to step 1, you could get it done. But as long as you're allowing yourself to continue to have experiences and to continue to ask for more, it's just this eternal process of joyful unfolding and never-ending eternalness.
I think I get caught up in I need to take action.
Well, action is divine, and we don't blame you for liking it. We're just asking you to wait for the inspiration to act rather than trying to use the action to get there. Because there's inspired action and there's motivated action. And the motivated action takes you that far down the road, and the inspired action is so much more robust and so much more pleasurable.
Is that because there's no resistance?
Yeah. As you've listened to us over time, we said to you, you create your own reality. And that makes you think, oh, I need to think. And we've said, you get what you think about. And then you thought, well, I need to think more carefully. And so now today we're saying you create your own reality. So you do want to think, but you also want to sometimes be in the step 1 asking mode, and sometimes you want to be in the step 3 receiving mode. And as you made the decision to come into this physical body, you planned on being about 10% of the time in the asking mode and the rest of the time in the receiving mode. And most humans have that flipped. You're thinking and asking and 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 thinking and asking, and then every now and again you let your guard down and you receive a little. And we want you to flip it the other way. We want you to take the lazy river for a while. We want you to enjoy the journey more. And don't worry about it. Life's going to keep you asking. You're not going to make a mistake in this. But it's time for you to let more of what you've asked for into your experience. And it's time for you to enjoy the journey along the way to those things that you want. And now we're going to drop the big bombshell on you. The only reason that you want them is so that you can have the joyful journey to them. Esther didn't like it the first time she heard us say that. She said it's sort of like trickery, like bait and switch. Like I thought I was going for that, and really I'm just going for this. We know being joyful is a terrible price to pay.
Should I always feel an inspirational thought as I meditate?
Well, there will be different degrees of it, but you'll get so that you can feel the difference. The optimum is to be inspired when you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and then you receive an idea from source, and then you meet that idea with your idea, and then you and source are just having this wonderful conversation back and forth where you're knowing you can do it and your source is knowing you can do it, and you're wondering where it is and your source knows where it is, and you're listening to your source and your source gives you an impulse and you follow the impulse, and you have a really nice conversation with someone, and you're just enjoying the day so much and enjoying yourself so much and enjoying them so much and enjoying life so much, and asking and answering and asking and answering and asking and answering and receiving. One day not so long ago, a friend was talking to Esther about wanting to give the perfect gift, and so they spent an hour on the telephone talking about giving and receiving, and it led into a conversation about those who like to give and those who like to take. And then Esther wanted to talk to us about it, and we said, you know how we've been talking to you for a while about how sometimes you'll be asking in a very strong way for something. It's often about someone who's made their departure into non-physical, or you'll have something that you're worried about or thinking about, so you're asking in a strong way, but you're not letting it in because you don't know the things that we've talked about here today, and so you're not letting it in. And then a bird will fly into your experience and really get your attention. It acts weird. It dives into your swimming pool in some weird way, or stands on a chair and stares at you for an inordinate amount of time, or comes by as a little hummingbird and then just looks at you like you're a flower and like it's going to get right up your nose and get something from you, and you're wondering, what are you doing here, and why are you staying so long, and why are you acting like such a weird hummingbird? And the hummingbird is saying to you, because I have a very important distracting message for you from source. Birds do it all the time because birds are plentiful, and when you're asking, birds can often get right in. When you're not receiving, they do, and they bring a sort of message to you. Esther will say, if you could only speak English, it would help so much. But the point of this story is that sometimes you're the hummingbird. Sometimes you get to be the step 2 answer in somebody else's asking. And so you reach this place where sometimes you're asking and often you're receiving, and often you are offering something that you're receiving on behalf of someone else. And when it all mixes together so that giving and receiving is the same vibration, you see what we're getting at?